Coffee time with Officer Fox. Hitting the crack pipe.
So one of the fun things that used to be was pursuits. I don't know how many pursuits they do anymore, but back in the day, we used to be able to do them if we could justify them. So I was coming out of roll call. I had an 8 o'clock roll call. Early squad came out at 7:30. Well, one of the early guys got in a pursuit down in Edward 5, which was as far from the precinct as you could get, as far from the freeway as you could get. So anyway, he's pursuing this burglar down there. Well, this burglar's lost. It's really residential. It's pinned in on two sides by Lake Washington. And if you're panicking, you look for what you're doing, you can't get out of there. And he was just doing loops. He would chase him around the same block 3 or 4 times. But it was so far that it was taking a long time. And it was shift change for us to get down there. So this pursuit's literally going on for 10 minutes down there as we're all jumping in our cars and heading out. And our policy at that time was the first 3 cars there could pursue. The rest of you were not allowed to. So, of course, being young and enthusiastic, you wanted to be number 3 car. But there was also etiquette rules. You couldn't cut off the lead car to take over the pursuit. If they fell back far enough, you could scooch in and then become the lead car. But it was kind of frowned upon. So anyway, you had to work your way into this pursuit if you wanted to be involved. So I'm sitting there, and this guy is the suspect's just making wider and wider loops. And so he's pushing his way out of that downtown neighborhood. And everybody's headed for the neighborhood. And by the way they're broadcasting, I can tell what he's doing. The guy's trying to get to the freeway. And that's why his loops are getting bigger and bigger. He doesn't know exactly where he is, but he knows if he makes the loops bigger eventually. So there was plenty of cars down there, more than 3 cars involved in this pursuit. So I know my chances of getting involved and having fun are limited. So I can tell by the broadcast that he's looking for the entrance to I-5. So I didn't bother going down there. I just jetted up to James Street and sat on the on-ramp for I-5. Well, sure enough, after about 10 minutes, he makes it out of down there. And here he comes. And he comes shooting by me. And that lead car is way behind because of the traffic and what have you. So I take over his lead on the pursuit. So we get on the freeway, and this was before all the really cool cars. My Dodge Diplomat topped out about 110. And he had a little Honda, and he was doing about 100. So I wanted to get a look at this guy. So we're on the freeway. So I pull up alongside of him about 110 miles an hour, and I look over. And this crazy bastard is driving with his knees and hitting the crack pipe. Big flame, smoking up. He's got it up to his lips. He's flaming, driving, turns and looks at me, gives me the head nod. And I realize, ooh, this is not going to end well. So anyway, we're southbound I-5 at 110 miles an hour. Cars are getting on behind me. Well, the South Precinct now they've been alerted because we're headed that way. So they're getting on. So I can see patrol cars getting on, and a patrol car gets on, and he's out in front of them, and I don't know what he was thinking. But anyway, he dynamites his brakes, thinking that he's going to slow this guy around. Well, at 110 miles an hour, he just zipped around and was gone. Unfortunately for me, I've got another patrol car in the middle of I-5, basically stopped as I'm doing 110 miles an hour. So anyway, almost was a wreck. I got around him, but I lost my lead position. So I stuck with it, but this guy raced about 25 miles out of town down the freeway, and then the troopers took over. And I had jumped in my patrol car without gassing it up because I wanted to get into pursuit. And I was literally on fumes 25 miles out of the city. So I had to pull off and get gas. But anyway, long story short is the troopers chase him all the way back. He turns around. They chase him all the way back into Seattle. He gets off down in Georgetown. not very bright. He gets on the railroad tracks, and it basically destroys his car. The car just rattled apart. I mean, just pieces just broke apart until it just disintegrated. And troopers and SPD that were there and took him into custody. But I'll never forget looking over at him, and he's driving with his knees and hitting that pipe like it's the last thing in the world he's going to do.
So he was driving on the train tracks to try and get away?
So the off ramp down to Georgetown, there's a set of railroad tracks that cross it. So he got off on Georgetown. There was a train there. So he just immediately made a left and started driving down the auxiliary set of tracks. And it literally, his car just came apart. It disintegrated from the rattle and the speed and all that.
Good decisions on crack.
Yeah, not many.